The wind howled across the empty city, carrying the smell of ash and broken metal. Towers lay twisted, streets cracked open like old scars, and the sky burned red with the light of a dying sun. Captain Ethan Ward, the lone human explorer, stepped carefully through the ruins. His suit's sensors clicked softly, scanning for any sign of life, but the screen showed nothing. Just silence. He had been searching this planet for 3 days. It was once the home of the Virelians, a proud alien race known for their beauty and wisdom. Now their cities were graves, their songs forgotten. The Galactic Council had declared the world dead years ago. But Ethan had picked up a faint distress signal, weak, almost impossible to catch, and he followed it here into the heart of ruin. He moved past broken statues and glowing dust until a faint sound reached him. A cry. It was small, trembling, and desperate. He froze, holding his breath. The sound came again, a soft voice calling for help. His heart began to race. "Hello?" he shouted, his voice echoing off shattered walls. No answer came, only the weak sobbing of something alive. He followed it through a collapsed corridor until he reached a half-buried chamber. Inside, light flickered faintly blue. He cleared away rubble and saw her. She was lying on the ground, covered in dust and blood. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver under the dim light, and her eyes, large, bright, and full of pain, met his. For a long moment, both just stared, silent and uncertain. Then she whispered, her voice cracking, "You are human." Ethan dropped to his knees beside her. "Yes," he said softly. "I'm here to help." Her breathing was weak. She tried to sit but collapsed again. Ethan opened his pack and gave her a small capsule of water. She looked at it, confused, then drank. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I thought, all gone," she whispered. "I am the last. Ethan repeated quietly. She nodded, her eyes closing for a moment. "My name is Lyra. My people, Virelians, we are gone. All of them. I stayed to guard the vault. But the machines turned." Ethan's chest tightened. The Virelians had been wiped out by a genetic plague, one that no cure could stop. He remembered the old reports, entire cities vanishing overnight. He thought no one survived. Yet here she was, fragile and trembling, the final spark of a once great species. Suddenly, a sound broke the quiet, a sharp metallic whine. Ethan looked up. From the shadows above, small red lights appeared. Drones, old security units, still active, still hunting. Lyra's eyes widened with fear. "They kill survivors," she whispered. "They think infection spreads." Ethan stood quickly, pulling his plasma pistol from his side. The drones descended like vultures, their mechanical voices hissing warnings. He grabbed Lyra's arm gently but firmly. "Come on, we need to move." They ran through the tunnel, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The ground shook as the drones fired behind them, plasma bolts smashing against stone. Dust filled the air. Ethan kicked open a rusted door and dragged her inside. They tumbled into a small room filled with broken equipment. She gasped for breath, clutching her side. "You shouldn't have saved me," she said between breaths. "They will never stop." Ethan reloaded his pistol. "I don't leave people behind," he said. "Not anymore." Her eyes softened at his words. For a moment, silence filled the room again, broken only by the sound of distant thunder. Then she looked at him with strange sadness. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If I die, my species dies forever." He turned to face her fully. "What do you mean?" She held up a small crystal vial glowing faintly blue. Inside floated strands of shimmering code. "This is what remains of our bloodline," she said weakly. "Our seed, our memory, our future. But it is failing. The code? Collapsing." Ethan frowned. "Can't it be repaired?" "Not with alien DNA," she whispered. "It rejects everything, but once long ago our ancestors worked with humans. They said humans carried something compatible. A key." Her voice trembled now, growing fainter. "You are the only one left who can save us." Ethan's pulse quickened. He didn't fully understand, but the meaning was clear enough. She wasn't just asking for help. She was begging for the survival of her entire kind. The room shuddered again as the drones began cutting through the ceiling above them. Sparks fell like rain. Lyra's body glowed faintly as her energy reacted to stress. Ethan shielded her, his mind spinning. "Please," she whispered, grabbing his wrist, her hand cold but steady. "Don't let us vanish." The roof cracked open, light flooding the room. Drones swarmed in. Ethan fired, the air filling with smoke and light. One shot struck a drone, another barely missed his arm. He pulled Lyra close, rolling behind a fallen pillar. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. In them, he saw something pure. A life begging not just to live, but to continue a whole world's legacy. The light grew brighter. Ethan's last thought before firing again was simple but firm. No one dies on my watch. The explosion that followed shook the ruins, sending fire and light into the sky. And deep beneath the rubble, the story of a dying race had just begun again. The tunnel trembled above them as dust rained from the ceiling. Smoke curled through the cracks where the drones had burst in, and the sound of metal claws scraping the floor echoed far too close. Ethan dragged Lyra deeper into the underground passage, his heart pounding. Every step he took, he could feel her weakening beside him. Her silver-blue glow dimmed with each breath. "This way," she whispered faintly, pointing toward a half-collapsed corridor. He followed her handlight, squeezing through twisted metal until they reached a narrow door sealed by age. Ethan slammed his shoulder against it once, twice, then it gave way with a groan. They stumbled inside. The chamber beyond was cold, silent, and filled with strange green light. Rows of broken pods lined the walls, ancient Varelian technology. Inside a few of them, skeletal remains floated in dark fluid frozen in time. Lyra's steps faltered as she looked around. "This was our Genesis Hall," she said softly, voice trembling. "Where life was born, before it died again." Ethan's gaze moved from one pod to another, trying not to think about how many lives had ended here. He turned back to her, seeing the despair in her eyes. "You said your people worked with humans once," he said. "What did you mean?" She knelt beside a shattered pod and brushed her fingers across its glass. "Before the wars," she whispered, "our scientists and humans shared knowledge. We called you the adaptable ones. Our code could not change fast enough to survive the plague, but human cells could bend, resist, evolve." She looked up, her silver eyes glistening with tears. "You carry what we lost." Ethan didn't know what to say. The idea sounded impossible, yet the desperation in her voice was too real to ignore. "You think I can help you rebuild your species?" Lyra nodded slowly. "You are the last chance, Ethan Ward. Without you, I die, and with me, everything my people were." The silence that followed was heavy. He could hear the wind outside howling through broken vents, a reminder that time was running out. "All right," he said finally. "Then we find a way." Lyra stared at him as if not believing her own ears. "You would help me? I didn't come all this way to watch someone fade away," he replied. "You said you were guarding a vault. Is it still out there?" She closed her eyes. "The vault is beneath the Capitol spire, far north. But the route is guarded by the harvesters, the machines that serve no one now. They take energy from the living to feed themselves." Ethan checked his rifle and the last of his power cells. "Then we'll need to move before they regroup." Lyra looked down at his hand resting on his weapon. Her fingers brushed his, light as air. "You risk much for a stranger." He gave a faint smile. "You're not a stranger anymore." For a moment, neither spoke. The room hummed softly, powered by dying machines that still remembered life. Lyra stepped toward one pod that still flickered with weak light. Inside, something glowed, a seed of energy shaped like a small crystal heart. She touched it gently, and the chamber pulsed around them. "This," she whispered, "is the last working gene core. If I can link it with your human code, the data may rebuild the pattern of life." Ethan frowned. "That sounds dangerous." "It is," she said softly. "But so is extinction." Her hand trembled as she placed the crystal heart into a slot on her wrist device. A hologram appeared, showing strands of DNA spiraling together, one Varelian, one human. The simulation blinked red. "The match is unstable," she murmured. "My body is breaking down faster than expected." Ethan crouched beside her, steadying her shoulders. "Tell me what to do." She looked at him, her eyes wide, her voice a whisper between hope and fear. "You already have. You didn't run." For the first time she smiled, a small, fragile thing glowing in the dark. But it faded quickly when a low mechanical growl rolled through the corridor outside. The harvesters had found them. Ethan moved fast, sealing the door and setting up an old defense drone from his kit. "How many are there?" "Dozens," she said quietly. "Maybe more." He tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then we hold this place." The walls shook as heavy steps echoed closer. Lyra's device glowed brighter, scanning the air. She turned to him, desperate now. "If I die, promise me. You'll take the gene core. Bring it to your people." He met her eyes. You're not dying here. Not while I'm breathing. The first harvester slammed against the door, its claws screeching against metal. Sparks flew. Lyra gasped, her energy flaring uncontrollably, casting blue light across the chamber. Ethan raised his weapon, firing as the door burst open. Bolts of plasma lit the darkness. The machines poured in, screaming with mechanical rage. Lyra cried out, channeling the last of her power. Her body glowed like a star, forcing the harvesters back. The shockwave hurled Ethan across the room, crashing into debris. When he lifted his head, the machines were gone, turned to ash. Lyra lay on the floor, trembling, smoke rising from her hands. Ethan crawled to her side, his voice rough. You're still here, she smiled faintly through the pain. Because of you. As her glow dimmed, Ethan looked at the hologram still hovering above her wrist. 2 genetic spirals intertwined, stabilizing. The code was working. He exhaled slowly, realizing what had just begun in that broken chamber beneath a dead world. A promise made in darkness to keep her alive no matter the cost. The night above the ruined planet was never silent. Machines still roamed the wastelands following forgotten orders, killing anything that moved. Under the broken sky, Ethan Ward guided Lyra through the twisted remains of old transport tunnels. His flashlight flickered across rusted walls covered in alien markings, faded warnings, names of the dead, and signs of battles long lost. Lyra stumbled beside him, her steps light but shaky. Her silvery skin looked paler than before, and the faint glow around her body dimmed with every breath. The machines will come again, she whispered. They can smell life. I know, Ethan replied quietly, scanning the scanner on his wrist. But they'll find only shadows by the time we're done. They reached an old lift shaft that led to the surface. He pushed open the hatch and climbed first, then helped her up. The cold wind hit them immediately. The landscape was endless. Black sand, sharp rocks, and broken spires of alien towers that glowed faintly under the pale moon. In the distance, something roared. Lyra turned her face to the horizon, sadness in her eyes. This was once a city of light, she said softly. Now it is only ghosts. Ethan looked at her and said, Ghosts can still fight. Before she could reply, his scanner beeped rapidly. He looked down and froze, several red signals closing in fast from the north. Heat signatures. We've got company, he said. Lyra's eyes widened. The hunters, she whispered. From the distant hills, mechanical shapes began to appear. Tall machines with glowing red eyes and blades for arms. They moved like wolves, fast and silent. The ground shook beneath their metal feet. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. Move, he said sharply. They ran through the wreckage of an old highway. Lyra's breath came in shallow gasps and her glowing veins pulsed like lightning beneath her skin. Ethan fired his plasma rifle behind him, bright bolts cutting through the dark. One hunter exploded, another stumbled. But more were coming. The chase tore through the ruins. Ethan spotted a collapsed hangar ahead and led her inside. The structure was old but large, its ceiling half open to the stars. Inside stood several broken ships and machines covered in dust. They ducked behind an old engine core. Ethan tried to steady his breathing. Lyra pressed her hand against her chest, her glow flickering wildly. They won't stop, she whispered. They were built to destroy all that carries the Virelian code. Ethan frowned. Then they'll have to unbuild themselves to stop me. He moved toward the control panel of the hangar, trying to reactivate the doors. Power surged weakly. The lights blinked once, then twice. A faint hum filled the air, enough to give the machines their signal. Outside, the hunters turned their heads. They had found them. Damn it, Ethan muttered. He ran back to Lyra and helped her stand. We can't stay here, he said. There's a bunker beneath the hangar floor. You can access it from that terminal. Lyra placed her glowing hand on the console. Symbols lit up instantly, her genetic link unlocking ancient systems. A secret hatch opened with a hiss. Go, Ethan shouted. But Lyra froze as a huge shadow filled the doorway. The lead hunter stepped in, its body covered in spikes, its eyes burning red. It spoke in a metallic voice. Unauthorized organic detected. Purge protocol active. Ethan raised his weapon, firing again and again. The plasma bolts hit the creature's armor but barely slowed it. Lyra cried out and unleashed a burst of light from her palms. The machine staggered, blinded for a moment. Ethan took the chance to dive forward, pulling her into the hatch. They tumbled down into darkness as the floor above exploded. The tunnel below lit with flickering emergency lights. The noise faded behind them, replaced by the low hum of deep underground machinery. Lyra leaned weakly against the wall. "We can't run forever," she said softly. Ethan turned to her, his face serious but calm. "Then we stop running," he said. "We make a stand." She looked at him curiously. "You fight for a species that isn't yours." "Why?" He paused. "Because you deserve to live," he said simply. "Because everyone does." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "You speak like one of us," she whispered. "But you're human," he smiled faintly. "Maybe that's the same thing." The tunnel opened into a huge underground chamber filled with alien machinery. Glowing crystals powered strange devices that hummed quietly. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes widening. "This place, it's the core vault," she said in awe. "The first home of my people." Ethan looked around, scanning the room. "Looks like you've still got some miracles left," he said. But as soon as he spoke, the lights flickered and a deep rumble echoed through the vault. The ceiling above began to shake. The hunters had found them again. Lyra grabbed his arm. "If they destroy this place, the code will die." Ethan raised his rifle, determination hardening his expression. "Then we hold this ground," he said. "No matter what." She looked at him. This human who had no reason to fight, no reason to care, yet still stood like a wall between her and the end. Something inside her shifted, something ancient and instinctive. She whispered almost to herself, "Perhaps this is what our ancestors saw in you." The sound of metal claws came closer. Red lights appeared through the cracks in the wall. Ethan took a deep breath, steadying his aim. "Stay behind me," he said. The walls broke open. The hunters poured in. Light, sound, and chaos filled the chamber. Ethan's shots tore through the dark. Lyra raised her hands, her energy flaring, merging with his weapon fire. Human and alien light fighting side by side. For a moment, the machines faltered, caught between two ancient powers. When the smoke cleared, silence returned. Only two figures stood, human and alien, side by side, the last hope of two dying worlds. And above them, the vault began to glow. Smoke still hung in the air after the battle. The vault was half ruined, its walls cracked, and strange blue light pulsed weakly from the dying machines. Ethan stood among the wreckage, breathing heavily. His armor was scorched, his weapon nearly empty. Around him lay the broken bodies of hunters, machines that once thought themselves immortal. He turned and saw Lyra kneeling near the vault core, her hands pressed to the floor. Her body glowed faintly, her silver blue skin now dim like a fading star. "They almost destroyed it," she whispered weakly. "The code, almost gone." Ethan crouched beside her. "But it's still here," he said softly. "Because of you." Lyra looked at him, her eyes wet with tears. "Because of us," she corrected. Then her body shivered. The glow around her chest flickered and she gasped in pain. "Hey, stay with me," Ethan said quickly, pulling a medical stim from his pack. He pressed it against her arm. The injector hissed and she trembled, her breathing uneven. "It won't last long," she whispered. "My cells, they're breaking faster now." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we stop them from breaking. There has to be something in this place that can help." He looked around the vault. The ancient machines hummed weakly, some still functional. He approached one, a glowing table surrounded by holographic symbols. "What is this?" he asked. Lyra looked up, her voice trembling but calm. "It's the rebirth chamber," she said. "It was used to fuse DNA, to rebuild the next generation of Virelians when we lost fertility to the plague." Ethan froze, realizing what she meant. "You're saying, this thing can merge genetic codes?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, it was how we once created life. But now, it only responds to living donors. It needs one of us." He looked at her, his heart pounding. "Lyra, if we use it on you—" "I know," she interrupted softly. "It might kill me, or save us both." Her voice was quiet, but every word carried the weight of a dying species. She touched his arm, her hand trembling. "Ethan, I'm scared." He placed his hand gently over hers. "So am I," he said. "But I'm not leaving you. Not now." A faint smile crossed her face, and tired but sincere. "Your kind always said that," she whispered. "Humans, you never leave." The rebirth chamber activated, filling the vault with pale blue light. Symbols appeared above it, spinning faster and faster. Ethan could feel the hum vibrating through his chest. Lyra stepped closer to the platform. her glow syncing with the machine. Ethan watched as her body seemed to merge with the light. "Tell me what to do," he said. "Just stay near me," she whispered. "The machine will read both our codes. It will choose what survives." He stepped beside her, placing his hand against the glowing console. The light intensified, connecting both of them in a web of energy. He could feel her heartbeat through the light, fast, fragile, and beautiful. For a moment, everything stopped. Ethan saw flashes in his mind, visions not his own. Vast oceans of crystal water, cities of silver towers reaching to the clouds. Lyra's memories. He saw her as a child, laughing among others like her before the sky burned and everything fell apart. He gasped, clutching his head. "What is this?" "Our memory," she whispered weakly. "Our soul." The light grew brighter until it filled the whole vault. The machine scanned them both, their genetic codes twisting together like strands of light. Lyra's body lifted off the ground, her hair floating around her face. Ethan reached out instinctively, holding her hand. Her eyes opened, glowing like stars. "It's working," she whispered. "The code is merging in," but then her expression changed. Pain crossed her face. Her body convulsed as the machine began to overload. "It's too much," she screamed. Ethan tried to pull her free, but the energy locked them in place. The chamber flared white. Then silence. Moments later, the light faded. Lyra collapsed against him, barely breathing. He held her tight, his heart pounding. "Lyra?" She opened her eyes slowly. They were still silver, but deeper now, mixed with a faint trace of human blue. "Ethan," she whispered weakly. "The code? It's stable." He looked around. The chamber's crystal core pulsed rhythmically, alive again. The hologram above them showed two spirals of light intertwined. The fusion had worked, but Lyra's body was trembling, her energy flickering. "You gave too much," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Your strength, it kept me alive." Ethan smiled faintly, exhausted but relieved. "Then it was worth it." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You don't understand what this means," she said softly. "With your DNA, my people can live again." He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, holding her close as the light of the reborn vault glowed around them. "Then we start rebuilding," he said. "Together." Lyra looked up at him, eyes filled with both gratitude and something deeper. "You're not just human anymore," she whispered. "You're part of us now." Outside, the wind howled across the wasteland, but inside the vault, new life had begun. The first spark of hope glowed quietly between them, fragile but alive. For the first time since the fall of her world, Lyra smiled. And Ethan, the last human on a dead planet, smiled back. The light of the vault still pulsed softly, spreading warmth through the ruins below the earth. For the first time in centuries, the machines of the Varelian people were alive again, singing faintly with energy. The fusion had worked. A new code had been born. Ethan sat beside Lyra near the glowing core, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. She leaned weakly against him, her silvery hair now streaked with faint strands of human brown. Her breathing was shallow but steady. "How do you feel?" he asked gently. Lyra smiled faintly. "Like my heart belongs to two worlds now," she whispered. "But my body, it's breaking faster. I used too much energy in the merge." Ethan frowned. "We'll fix it. You saved the code, now we save you." She shook her head slowly. "You don't understand. The chamber used your energy too. You're connected to me now. If I die, the link will pull you down too." Ethan looked at her in silence. "Then we'll just have to make sure neither of us dies." For a moment, neither spoke. Only the soft hum of the reborn vault filled the air. Lyra looked toward the glowing sphere in the center, the gene core now alive and stable. Within its crystal heart, light swirled slowly like a child dreaming. "That's our future," she whispered. "Our child. The first seed of a new world." Ethan followed her gaze. It didn't look like a child, not yet. But the thought of it made his chest tighten. He wasn't sure what to feel, awe, fear, or something deeper. "If this works," he said softly, "your people will live again." Lyra turned to him, her voice trembling. "Our people," she corrected. "You are part of it now. The code knows your name." Before Ethan could answer, the ground shook violently. A deep rumble echoed through the tunnels. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra gasped, clutching his arm. "What was that?" she whispered. Ethan stood quickly, checking his scanner. His heart dropped.
"Something's coming from orbit," he said grimly.
Large, heavy, probably a warship. The vault lights flickered, reacting to the impact above. Then a metallic voice boomed faintly through the underground speakers. Energy anomaly detected. Coordinates locked. Initiating planetary purge. Lyra's eyes widened. No, that's impossible. The Council's purge ships were destroyed ages ago. Ethan cursed under his breath. Looks like one survived and it just woke up. He ran to the console and pulled up the scanner. A huge shadow appeared above the surface. A warship the size of a mountain. Its cannons were already warming up, targeting the very energy they'd just reawakened. They're going to wipe this place out, he said. They think it's a plague source. Lyra stumbled toward him, her hands trembling. The gene core can't survive that. If it's destroyed, my kind dies forever. Ethan turned, determination hardening in his eyes. Then I'll stop it. She grabbed his wrist, her voice desperate. You can't fight a warship. You'll die. He gave a faint smile. You said we're connected, right? Then if one of us dies, both go down. That means I've got extra motivation to win. Before she could protest, he grabbed his weapon and headed for the surface tunnel. Lyra followed, her glow flickering like a dying candle. Ethan, please! He stopped and looked back at her. You once told me your people believed humans carried the spark of life. Maybe this is what you meant, to fight for it no matter what. Then he climbed the tunnel ladder, vanishing into the light above. The surface was chaos. The sky burned orange as the warship's engines blotted out the stars. Its cannons hummed with deadly power, gathering energy to erase everything below. Ethan stumbled through the smoke, coughing, searching for something, anything, to use. His eyes caught an old structure, the remains of a planetary defense turret half buried in the sand. He sprinted toward it, ripping open its control hatch. The systems were dead, but his suit's battery still had power. He linked it directly. Sparks flew, but the turret hummed faintly to life. He looked up at the sky, muttering to himself, Come on, just one shot. Inside the vault below, Lyra watched the surface feed through the hologram. Tears streamed down her face. Don't do this, she whispered. Please, Ethan. Up above, the warship aimed its cannons. The sky flashed bright as energy gathered, ready to fire. Ethan gritted his teeth and slammed the turret control. For every soul you erased, he growled, this one's for them. The ground shook as the turret fired a massive energy bolt. It tore through the sky, striking the warship's main cannon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then an explosion. The entire ship erupted in flames, fragments raining across the desert. But the blast wave hit hard. The turret shattered. Ethan was thrown backward, crashing into the sand. He didn't move. In the vault below, Lyra screamed as the psychic link burst with pain. She fell to her knees, clutching her heart. Ethan! Silence. Then faintly through the smoke and static, she heard his voice in her mind. Still here, he whispered weakly. Told you. Not dying yet. Lyra collapsed in relief, sobbing quietly. The gene core pulsed brighter, reacting to the emotion, its light spreading through the vault like a heartbeat. Above, Ethan lay beneath the shattered sky, staring at the stars. The clouds had cleared. For the first time since he landed, he saw them shine. He smiled faintly. Still alive, he whispered. Guess hope's more powerful than we thought, and far below the surface. In the heart of the glowing vault, a single spark inside the gene core grew stronger, a sign that life, fragile but fierce, was beginning again. The storm had passed, leaving the world in eerie silence. The ruins glowed faintly under a silver sky as smoke drifted across the plains. The warship was gone, just burning wreckage scattered across the desert. Ethan lay motionless among the debris, his armor cracked, his body still. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then a faint beeping echoed from his wrist unit. His eyes opened slowly. Pain shot through his chest, but he smiled weakly. Still breathing, he whispered. He rolled onto his side and looked up. The stars above were clear again, bright, endless, beautiful. For the first time, the dead planet felt alive. He pushed himself up, coughing, and began walking toward the horizon, where the hidden vault lay buried under stone and sand. Each step was slow, heavy, but he didn't stop. His promise to Lyra kept him moving. Deep below the surface, the vault pulsed with soft blue light. The gene core in the center glowed brighter than ever, sending waves of warmth through the cold air. Lyra sat near it, her hands trembling. Her connection with Ethan's mind was faint but alive, a thread of light that refused to break. You're coming back, she whispered. I can feel you. Her body was weaker now. The merge had saved her DNA but drained her energy. Her once bright silver skin had turned pale and her glow was fading fast. Still she smiled as she placed her hand on the gene core. Inside it, something moved. The light swirled in gentle patterns, forming shapes, cells, pulses, life. It was growing. "Hello, little one," she whispered softly. "You are the first of us. You carry both worlds in you." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "You'll never be alone, I promise." The chamber responded to her voice, the lights glowing brighter as if listening. Hours later, footsteps echoed through the tunnels. Lyra lifted her head weakly, hope flashing in her eyes. She saw a shadow in the light, tall, human, limping but alive. "Ethan," she whispered. He appeared at the doorway, covered in dust and blood but smiling. "You didn't think I'd let you finish this story without me, did you?" She laughed weakly, tears filling her eyes. "You came back?" He knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he touched her face. "Always," he said softly. "You kept me alive out there." She smiled faintly. "No, you kept us alive in here." She pointed to the glowing core. Ethan turned and stared in amazement. Inside the crystal, light formed a small floating shape, fragile but alive. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat. "It's growing," he said quietly. Lyra nodded slowly. "It's the first of its kind. Half Aurelian, half human." Ethan couldn't look away. "So that's our creation," Lyra smiled. "Our child, in a way. The first bridge between two dying worlds." For a moment, they just watched the light move inside the crystal, breathing together, listening to the hum of reborn life. But then the ground rumbled softly, Ethan's eyes narrowed. "That's not good." Lyra shook her head weakly. "No, the explosion woke the planet. The systems are reactivating, old defense codes, planetary scanners. Soon someone will notice the signal." Ethan turned to her, serious. "Good. Maybe help will come." She looked uncertain. "Or destruction." Before he could reply, his wrist unit beeped sharply. He looked down and froze. "Human transmission detected," the AI voice said. He blinked in disbelief. "That's impossible." The screen showed a beacon symbol, Terran Fleet Command approaching from orbit. "They picked up my distress call," he whispered. "They're here." Lyra's eyes widened. "Humans, they survived?" He nodded slowly, a smile forming. "Not just survived. We built again. We found the stars." For the first time, true joy lit her eyes. "Then maybe this is how it was meant to be." Minutes later, the rumble of engines filled the sky. Ethan helped Lyra to the surface. The two of them stood among the broken towers, the wind tugging at their hair as fire from descending ships burned across the clouds. Lyra leaned weakly on his arm. "Your people," she whispered. "They'll fear me." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then they'll have to learn fast." The first dropship landed nearby, its doors sliding open. A group of humans in sleek armor rushed out, weapons raised. They froze when they saw Ethan, battered but alive, standing beside the glowing alien woman. One of them lowered his weapon slowly. "Captain Ward? We thought you were dead." Ethan nodded toward Lyra. "Not dead. Saved." The soldiers looked at her, unsure. Lyra bowed her head slightly, her voice soft. "I am Lyra of Varelia, last of my people, but maybe not the last anymore." The commander stepped forward cautiously. "What is that light behind you?" Ethan turned and smiled. "That," he said, "is the future." He pointed toward the gene core, visible through the cracked ground, glowing like a small sun. "A new life, half human, half alien. Proof that we can rebuild what we destroyed." The humans exchanged stunned glances. The commander's voice softened. "Then let's get you both home." Lyra looked up at Ethan, her eyes glimmering with hope. "Home," she whispered. A word I never thought I'd say again. He smiled gently. "Then let's give it meaning again." As the ship lifted them into the air, the valley below began to glow brighter. The seeds Lyra had planted around the vault pulsed with energy, spreading across the sand like rivers of light. From above, the world looked alive again, no longer dead, but reborn. Ethan watched through the window, his arm around Lyra. "You see that?" he said softly. "That's the start of something bigger than both of us." Lyra rested her head against his shoulder. "No," she whispered with a smile. "That's the start of us." And far below, the gene core pulsed one final time, the first heartbeat of a new era, echoing through two worlds united at last. The human ship cut silently through the sky, leaving trails of silver fire across the wounded world below. From the viewing deck, Ethan Ward stood beside Lyra, watching the reborn planet turn slowly beneath them. The once dead desert now shimmered faintly with blue veins of light, the living energy spreading from the gene core buried deep underground. "Your world," Ethan said softly, his voice full of awe. "Our world," Lyra corrected, her tone warm and quiet. Her silver hair glowed faintly under the cabin lights, and her once fading eyes now shone brighter than ever. "It's breathing again." For a long moment, neither spoke. They just watched the planet heal itself, clouds reforming, air stabilizing, and the blue light crawling across the wasteland like veins carrying new life. Behind them, the Terran scientists worked around the clock, studying the data Ethan had brought back. Holograms of the gene core filled the room, showing the merged code, the first true hybrid of human and Virelian life. Dr. Naresh, the mission's chief scientist, stared at the readings in disbelief. This changes everything," he said. "We thought the Virelian genome was impossible to repair. But human adaptability, it stabilized it perfectly." Ethan smiled faintly. "Guess stubbornness finally did some good." Lyra turned toward him, her expression gentle. "You gave more than your strength," she said softly. "You gave your soul. Your species didn't just save mine, you became part of it." He looked at her, and for the first time he saw what she truly was. Not just an alien girl from a lost world, but the bridge between two civilizations that had once feared each other. The commander of the ship approached. "Captain Ward," she said, "Command has approved full recovery operations on Virelia. We'll establish a research base around the vault," and she hesitated, glancing at Lyra. "They want to meet her." Lyra stepped forward, calm but nervous. "Will they accept me?" The commander smiled. "After what you two did? They'll welcome you as one of us." Lyra's eyes glistened. "Then I'm ready." Hours later, the ship descended back to the planet's surface. This time, dozens of human craft followed, carriers, drones, and scientists. They landed across the blue glowing valley, the air filled with a quiet hum of rebirth. As the humans began to build their camp, Lyra and Ethan returned to the vault. The gene core pulsed stronger now, and around it, small crystal sprouts had grown. Tiny glowing plants pushing through the cracks. Ethan knelt and brushed his fingers against one. "It's warm," he said softly. "They're living," Lyra whispered. "They carry fragments of our code. They'll grow into forests one day." He looked at her with a gentle smile. "So this is what hope looks like." She turned to him. "Hope and love. Your people and mine once feared each other, but look what we made together." He reached for her hand, their fingers interlocking. Her touch was cool but alive, glowing faintly between them. "Lyra," he said quietly, "when I came here, I thought I was alone in the galaxy. But you proved me wrong. You showed me there's still something worth fighting for." Her eyes softened. "And you showed me that not all life is born. Some is chosen." They stood together, surrounded by the gentle hum of new beginnings. As the days passed, the valley transformed. Human engineers worked alongside Lyra, learning from her ancient technology. The atmosphere thickened with oxygen. Rain fell for the first time in centuries, and blue water filled the dry basins. Children from the fleet played near the glowing fields, their laughter echoing across the valley. Soldiers watched the horizon where alien light met human fire, the line between species fading with every sunrise. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Ethan and Lyra stood at the edge of a new lake that shimmered with both sky and starlight. The air was calm. Birds, small, luminous creatures born from the seeds of the vault, fluttered above them. "This place will have a name again," Lyra said softly. "Not the one my ancestors gave it, but a name born of both worlds." Ethan thought for a moment. "How about Nova Terra Virelian?" She smiled. "New Earth of Light, yes. I like that." He turned to her, his voice gentle. "What happens next?" Lyra looked up at the stars. "We rebuild. Your people will study my world, and I will teach them what we forgot. How to live with it, not against it, and maybe one day the new generation will carry both our memories." Her hand rested lightly on her chest, where the merged scar still glowed faintly. "The child of the vault will awaken soon. It will need both of us to guide it." Ethan placed his hand over hers. "Then we'll guide it together." That night, under a sky full of new constellations, the gene core cracked open. Light poured into the valley, brighter than dawn. Everyone stopped to watch as a small figure rose from the heart of the core. Not human, not Varillian, but something in between. Its skin glowed faintly gold, and its eyes shimmered like stars. It looked at Lyra first, then Ethan, and reached out both hands. Lyra knelt, tears filling her eyes. "Welcome home," she whispered. Ethan smiled, his voice low but steady. "You're proof that we can do better." The child blinked, tilting its head curiously, then smiled, a smile that carried both human warmth and alien light. Around them the valley bloomed. The air shimmered with life. The stars above reflected in the waters below, as if two worlds had finally become one. Lyra looked at Ethan and said softly, "You saved my kind." Ethan Ward. "But more than that, you taught the universe what it means to be human." He smiled back. "And you taught humanity what it means to be alive." The camera of the universe pulled back, two figures, one human and one alien, standing hand in hand beneath a newborn sky. As a new sun rose over the reborn planet, it was not the end. It was the dawn of two worlds.